Brett, how's it going?
I'm doing well. How are you, Trevor?
Doing awesome. Thank you
Good.
so much for being willing to join.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, so first off, kick things off, I wanted to learn more about McKonly and Asbury, what you guys do, what does your employee demographic look like, and also what your role is within the organization.
Sure. So McKonly and Asbury is a public accounting firm, so a bunch of CPAs and advisors. We're located in central Pennsylvania, so we have 3 different offices across the state, working with a lot of small, medium-sized businesses, assisting with their tax work, their audit work, some back office accounting, and consulting work as well.
Cool. And I'm curious, what caused you to start looking for a recognition platform?
So that's a great question. I'd say our culture at McKonly and Asbury is kind of what sets us apart from other public accounting firms. And so last year, I was looking at some results from our pulse surveys that we go through and noticed that there was kind of a decline in people's scores on the question of whether or not they felt like they were getting the recognition that they deserved. And so, looking at last year, you can very easily chalk that up to the pandemic, to working from home and all of that. But I think it was more than that. So we had an old system that we created internally to give people recognition. And that system had been working well for probably 10 years or so. And in the last year or two, people just haven't been using it as much. It's shown that it's kind of old, a little bit clunky. And so people, like I said, just weren't using it as much. And so I attribute a lot of people's feeling of not getting recognized within the firm to that platform. And so what we did was put together a committee of 8 within the firm who looked into, how can we solve this problem? How can we get people feeling recognized for exceptional work in a way that is meaningful to them? And so that's where, through some brainstorming, we came across this idea that Nectar has really capitalized on, where you can, assign points to a shout out, and then those points can be redeemed through a catalog of rewards. And so as soon as we saw that idea, we really gravitated towards that, and then it just became more of a question of, all right, which platform do we go with? Because it looked like there were a number of players in that industry.
Yeah, that's great. And how many other platforms did you look at?
We kind of split up within the group. I'd say we maybe did demos of 5 different platforms, and then narrowed it down to our top 2, and then did kind of a deeper dive in those top 2, Nectar being one of them.
Cool. Yeah, and what kind of pushed us over the edge for you guys?
By far, the thing that stuck out the most with Nectar was the pricing. It was significantly lower than the other company that we were looking into. And so we were a little hesitant, honestly, at first. We were like, this doesn't make sense that they could be this cheap. What are they missing? And so when we did that deeper dive with the other competitor, we asked them that question. We're also looking into Nectar. What do you guys have that Nectar doesn't? And they weren't able to answer that question. And when we talked to the Nectar representative and asked that again, we have some concerns. The pricing is almost too low. They just explained that, that the other platform we're looking at is really geared towards much larger companies. Like I said, we have about 100 employees at McKonly and Asbury. So, that resonated. He mentioned, you're not spending all kinds of overhead on locations across the country, a lot of marketing and sales expenses that the competitor did. And so the pricing model just fit McKonly and Asbury a lot more than the other platforms we were looking at. And that said, I don't think we saw Nectar as being lesser than the competition in terms of functionality. Even when we went for, which platform do we think users are going to appreciate the most or is going to be easiest to use, that was also Nectar. Even though it was the cheaper option, it also appeared to be the better option.
That's high praise. You just made my day. So I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
It's good to hear that we seem to be the value choice without losing out on the functionality or the user experience that you were hoping to kind of maintain there. So that's great. I'd like to drill down a little more on your old program that you were running internally. if you could give me a more background on how that worked and at what point you feel like it stopped working, I guess.
Yeah. So on our intranet, we had a form that you could go out and fill out the form. You'd submit it, and then I guess we would have quarterly staff meetings. At those staff meetings, based on the number of shout outs you got, you could get rewards or get more tickets to get a chance to win a raffle, things like that. I always appreciated that they would read a number of those shout outs during the staff meeting. I think people always liked getting that public recognition, but I don't know if it was the interface. It was, like I said, kind of older, a little clunky, but
yeah.
As time went on, people weren't using it nearly as much as they used to. It didn't seem to mean as much either. And I wish I had data on this. I don't know how many of those shout outs per month we used to give out, but I would guess it is probably 10% of the number of shout outs that we're getting through Nectar. People are using Nectar significantly more than they were with our internally created, we called it our UROC system.
UROC, okay, cool. Yeah, thanks for giving me some more details on that. It's always interesting as I talk to current customers and even prospects. A lot of them have built internal systems, and it's fun for me to see how those were created, and because a lot of them are very creative, and it is better than doing nothing. You have a ton of organizations that are doing nothing at all, and it's the ones that are doing this internally and doing it very manually that we know are serious about recognition. They just don't have the resources or the technology to make it happen, like a platform like ours. And honestly, we like all of our competitors. We have pretty good relationships with most of them, and it's not uncommon that our sales team will recommend a competitor or an alternative to a prospect, just depending on the size and the fit. But the way we look at things is recognition is extremely important. It's a basic human need. And so using us or a competitor, it doesn't really matter to us. Obviously, we're biased towards our solution, but we know that if they go with a Bonusly or somebody else, they're going to be way better off, and they're going to get the outcomes that they're looking for.
Yeah, and one of the things that we were a little hesitant with, so we loved the concept, but we were hesitant, if the partner group is only going to spend so many dollars on this program. Our old method had no overhead, so 100% of the costs went to employees. So we were a little concerned as we moved to a different platform where we have kind of these base fees. We really didn't want too much of that compensation package being poured into the platform itself.
Right.
And so that was, again, a big reason why we went with Nectar over the other options. We were able to save a lot more money, which was then put out in terms of rewards for our employees. So employees aren't losing that overhead that they would with some of the bigger platforms, which are charging 2 or 3 times the rate.
That's an interesting point. I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think that's a common concern that comes up is, do we really want to put a lot of money into like the delivery mechanism of these rewards, and it's taking it out of the employee's pocket? So yeah, I'm glad that you articulated that a little bit there.
Another point to consider, if that is something that a company is wrestling with, is what we have found, and again, I wish I had data to back this up, but I think everyone at McKonly and Asbury would agree, the use of it far surpasses our old platform. So if the point is to give your employees recognition, to help them feel like they have a place in the organization and they're appreciated, the fact that you're getting 5 times as many shout outs as you would through a different way of maybe creating it internally for much cheaper, I think is worth that extra cost in and of itself.
That's a good way to put it. And on that note, I'm curious, as far as the administrative burden, has Nectar reduced that burden because the system has been able to automate all of these things in what you were doing internally? And yeah, how much workload was going into the old system?
It's a good question. So I don't think I mentioned at the beginning my role at McKonly and Asbury. I'm a senior manager in our audit division, so I don't really do anything in HR or IT typically. Our IT department used to run that old platform, so I'm not sure the burden that it was for them, but I can say, For me, my busiest time of year is December, January, February, which is exactly when we implemented Nectar. And for me, someone who has a lot of billable work to do, taking on this administrative task, I was a little hesitant that it would be very time consuming and take me away from being able to get my client work done. But that was not the case. The implementation went very smoothly. I kept thinking there would be more correspondence, like more things I needed to fill out to make this work. But it was essentially as easy as just dumping in our email addresses and grouping people if we wanted to go that route. So it was not time consuming for implementation, and even after implementation, like you said, it kind of runs itself. I mean, I'll go in every once in a while just to look at the analytics. I think that's helpful, but it doesn't require much time for me at all.
That's good to hear. Yeah, it seems that a lot of the internal programs being run do take up a significant amount of time for somebody in HR or whoever's managing it. So in my mind, that can help offset that subscription cost to create a program that kind of runs itself, and it's very hands-off, and will get high user adoption and get the outcome of like all the frequency of recognition that you're looking for.
And to an extent, we've seen that in the swag. So we have that feature with Nectar. Completely overtook our old company store, which was a lot more labor intensive for our marketing department. This is really, our marketing team's almost entirely out of the picture now. It's the user, the employee, going on the website and ordering it, and it's shipped directly to the employee. I think our old system was shipped to our main office, which then had to be distributed to the other locations, and it's just quicker for everyone. Yeah.
Good. Yeah, that's great. Well, I think I'm out of questions. We went pretty in depth in a few important areas. I love hearing from customers on their overall experience, and I'm grateful that you were willing to come on, Brett.
Good. Yeah, we've had a great first few months here with Nectar, and we just really appreciate all the support we've gotten from you guys, and thanks for the opportunity to talk about it.
Okay. Yeah, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
We'll talk soon.
Sounds good.
Okay. Catch you later, Brett.
See you, Trevor.